Well, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of Out of Left Field. My name is Kevin Olenek, joined as always by Jonathan. Jonathan, how do people follow us?
Yeah, so we are up on basically all the socials now. All of our video episodes go up on YouTube out of left field. The audio versions go up on Spreaker out of left field podcast. We're on Substack, and we are on X. And Instagram out of left field pod or out of LF pod, and Facebook is out of left field.
And so we are talk Mariners, we talk Blue Jays, Major League Baseball, and Canadian baseball. What we have decided to do is split. We have the full audio where you can listen to the entire podcast, but if you want to listen to just the Blue Jay stuff and the Mariners stuff, we will be clipping those and putting them out on audio format so you can check them out on Spreaker or wherever you get your podcast, except YouTube. They won't be on YouTube because there just will be audio only. So you'll check those out. We'll send them out on our social medias as well. We got a lot to cover today, so let's get into this. We will start with some sad news. Uh, Bob Horner passed away this week. He was an Atlanta Brave from 1978 to 1986. He played first base and third base. He was the number one overall pick in 1978 and won Rookie of the Year. And he does have a significance to Canadian baseball. He hit 4 home runs in one game in Montreal, and it was the only 4-homer game in the 80s. So wanted to start out acknowledging it's been kind of a tough year for the Atlanta Braves, Jonathan. Bobby Cox, Ted Turner,
Ted Turner, Bobby Cox. Yeah, it's been a tough run for them. So yeah, definitely want to acknowledge Bob Horner before we get going for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So thoughts and prayers and all to the Atlanta Braves family and the Horner family. We also rotate and we usually start with one team first. So this week we start with the Blue Jays, and it's an interesting week in Toronto. Jonathan, what happened?
Yeah, so there's been a lot going on the last week since we last talked. It's been a good week, winning 2 of 3 in each of their home series this week, the Pirates and the Marlins. Going back further to the end of the Yankees series in New York, they won the last 2 there. So they are 6-2 in their last 8. So they're up to entering play on Thursday 27 and 29, 9 back of Tampa and a half game back of the third wild card. Injury news, there's always injury news for the Blue Jays. Dylan Cease in his last start exited in the 5th inning. Looked like maybe double leg cramps. He was kicking out both legs. Had pictures done after the game, and turns out it was a hamstring injury. He was put on the IL. John Schneider hopeful that it's a minimum stay, but hamstrings are not usually like that, and that's not how the Jays have been trending this year, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Dylan Cease miss more than the minimum, some more pitching troubles. Positive side, Max Scherzer's throwing probably at least a couple of weeks away there. Alejandro Kirk, he's able to catch, but the hitting has been slower. He's not on a rehab yet. Neither one are on a rehab yet, so each of those guys are a couple or a few weeks away. Addison Barger, they're hoping he's going to throw on Thursday, and he's been out for a while now, so he'll probably need rehab assignment. So yeah, the MASH unit stays full for the Blue Jays. A notable thing for me this week is something that happened in the Marlins series. In game 2 of the series on Tuesday, Sandy Alcantara hit 4 Blue Jays batters during the course of his start, and none were intentional. They're completely innocent. But to me, when a team gets hit 4 times, at that point, they have the right to be upset, and because it becomes about safety. If the other team has an arm out there who has no idea where it's going and is hitting your people repeatedly, including Nathan Lucas in the back of the head, to me, the team being victimized has the right to stand up for itself. They chose not to. There was no reaction of any kind in game, and post game, John Schneider, the manager, distanced himself from it. Just says he respected Alcantara, respects Clayton McCullough, the Marlins manager. So there was nothing there, and then it got a little more. It irked me a little bit more on Wednesday. Yuri Perez, who typically is not that pinpoint with his control, was early in his start. And then in the 4th inning, he ran a fastball that started inside on Kaz Okamoto, ran further inside and got him square in the number. And afterwards, cameras caught him looking back at the dugout and at the Blue Jays dugout and smiling. And then he got out of the inning a few minutes later, and cameras again caught him looking into the Blue Jays dugout and smiling at them even more. So at that point, and the Blue Jays did come back from down 1-0 to win that game on Wednesday and win the series. But to me, at that point, they were losing, and the other starting pitcher had no remorse about hitting a batter the day after the Jays had been hit 4 times. So to me, at that point, the Jays were losing and getting bullied, and I did not like that. I need to, for one, I need to see some sort of a defense the night before it escalated into Yuri Perez having no remorse over hitting Kaz. So to me, it looked like a team that was getting bullied, and I shouldn't reference last year because we should be well past referencing last year all the time. But to me, a really tight bonded team sticks up for themselves there. So it was to me, it was a really bad look. To me, it questioned the character of this group a little bit. Yeah, I'm old school. I would have been good with Uriel Rodriguez on Tuesday night hitting a Marlins batter. I would have been good with bench clearing. I would have been good with John Schneider having words with McCullough. I'm a bit old school that way, but yeah, I was disappointed to not see the Jays stand up for themselves there. Yeah, so
This sounds like Toronto has a plague with this right now. I mean, in hockey, remember Radko Gudas hits Austin Matthews and nobody responded either. There seems to be something going on in the water in Toronto right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right about that. Yeah, I wanted something. It's been a flat, it's been the entire year's been flat, and yeah, it's hard to look like you're engaged in baseball when you can't hit, because the way baseball is structured, if you're not hitting, you can't. There's no motion if you're not hitting, and so that would have been a chance to show show the fans that you're engaged, that you care, something that people can see, and yeah, it's a bonding opportunity to bring the team together. Um, so yeah, uh, that's something that I did like this week. Something that I did like
You seem
this
so
week.
mild. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but you seem so
Okay.
mild. It's funny because you seem so mild mannered. I wouldn't think that you would be one that would want that would choose violence. So I'm kind of I'm kind of surprised by your position. Not that I disagree with you. I don't disagree. I'm also mild mannered, but I do understand where you're coming from. But I am surprised you've taken this position.
Yeah, and to a large extent, when you know, in sports, to a large extent, there's got to be two people. you got to have you got to have two different personalities. Outside the lines before game time, and once the game starts, it's different. And to use the example of the managers again, yes, it's true that Marlins manager Clayton McCullough used to work for the Blue Jays in the minor league system, and he coached together with John Schneider. So it's true that they have a past working relationship, and from the sounds of it, they have a friendship. That's good. That's cool. Um, but to me, friendships stop when the first pitch flies.
Yeah.
He's the leader of his dugout. He's the leader of his group of guys. And when the other team is putting his team's safety in danger, he's got to stand up for them. And he didn't really do that. And the group didn't really stand up for themselves either. So, something else I did like the last week or so was off the top. I mentioned that the Jays are 6-2 in their last 8, which kind of sneaks up on you quietly with the hole they've dug for themselves. But the common thread in the last 8 games has been the pitching, and a lot of it has been the bullpen. They've given up 2 runs or fewer 6 times in their last 8 games. That's allowed them to put up those wins because the offense still isn't hitting that much. So that's good. What I don't like is the reliance on the bullpen, and it's something that we saw last year with Jeff Hoffman, and I believe led to the troubles of Hoffman as the year went on last year. So Mason Fluharty and Braden Fisher, as of entering play on Thursday, they are tied for the major league lead in appearances with 29, and then Rogers and Varland are tied for 8th with 27. That's a lot of appearances at this point in the year. You're looking at 70 to 80 appearances over a full year for your 4 of your top arms in your pen. that's not sustainable. They're not going to stay sharp. They're going to slow down. So either they need to find a way to slow down their reliance on their top arms, the number of times they're bringing them out, or performance is going to slide. We saw it last year. Jeff Hoffman comes over last year and has a monster April, but they were using him every night, it seemed, because the offense didn't hit last year for the first 2 months. And what's happening this year? The offense isn't hitting again for the first 2 months this year, and they're abusing their bullpen. You can get away with that when your rotation is giving you quality innings, and for the most part, they've gotten that. Your top three is good. When your top three is good, Gosman, Cease, Savage, when they're good, and Patrick Corbin is stable, you can get away with using your bullpen more aggressively. But they have been running an every fifth day bullpen day because they don't have 5 healthy starters right now. And you add to that, Dylan Cease is now on the IL, and Kevin Gosman was worked really hard on Wednesday and could only go 5 innings. So with Cease out, and if Gosman gives you a short outing, you're going to, the aggressive bullpen usage is going to put you in a really hard spot. So, yeah, that's something's got to change there. And actually, there's a tie into something that we're gonna get to in a minute. But just quickly looking forward, the Blue Jays are now down to Baltimore for a 4-game series against the Orioles, and this is a big opportunity for the Jays to get right back in it. 6-2 in their last 8 has them 2 games under 500, half a game out of the playoffs, and Baltimore is having a rough go of it this year, and their struggle is pitching. And Baltimore is a good hitter's park. So this is a chance for the Jays bats to wake up. Thing is that the Orioles hit a little bit, so it'll be a bit of a challenge for the Jays' arms, but they'll see old friend Chris Bassett, who's having a bit of a tough year so far. But I need to, the last few weeks, there's been moments where the Jays have had an opportunity to really make up significant ground, and they haven't done it. Here's another chance for the Jays to turn this 6-2 into maybe a 9-3 run. And maybe then you're talking about a team that is really back.
Yeah. Okay. So, I was watching a little bit of this. It was watching the game against the Marlins here, and I think one of the things that I think is going to happen here with the Blue Jays, if I'm playing the Blue Jays, and one of the things that I'm going to be doing, we talked about this last week, you talked about how you think this pitching is, if they get into the playoffs, you can clarify if I've said this wrong, but if they get into the playoffs, you think that their pitching can match anybody. And was that correct, by the way?
I would add detail that I was looking more specifically at the top 3, with assuming you have a healthy Cease, Gosman, and you Savage, and it was kind of under the context of if the division is out of reach and you have to go in the playoffs as a wild card, I could see this team having the pitching to win a wild card series and then give yourself a chance to go on a run after that.
Okay, fair enough. I just think I just think if I'm playing the Blue Jays right now, my immediate objective is to try to get those starters out as quickly as possible. And you could see that what the Marlins were trying to do today. Then because it was 95 pitches after 5 innings for Gossman. And I think that's my big concern right now with the Blue Jays is I want to get to that bull. My strategy with the Blue Jays right now is to get to the bullpen as quickly as I possibly can.
Yep.
Because that's where the hay is going to be, and that's the challenge. Now, there is a report from Bob Nightingale out here that about a certain player that is rumored to be on the block, and we look at the Detroit Tigers. And they are currently 22-34. They're 10 games behind Cleveland in the American League. They are currently, in terms of wild card, it feels like still everybody is in it, but they're 5 games out, 2-8 in their last 10. So Tarek Skubal's name is coming out. And the Jays are reportedly in this conversation about getting Tarek Skubal. I remember last year the Mariners played the Tigers in the wild card round. And that guy pitched. One of the things that was forgotten last year was the game that Tarek Skubal pitched for Detroit in Game 3 against Seattle. Or no, sorry, that was not the wild card round. Pardon me, it was the division round because it was a 5-game series. That he pitched a monster game. He is a quality pitcher, one of the best left-handers in the game. I guess. What exactly do you think the Jays can give up to get Skubal?
I think the first name that would have to be included is Arjun Amala, top prospect in AA right now, seen as probably the shortstop of the future. Played last year and the start of this year in Vancouver, is now in New Hampshire. So I would imagine the ask on a prospect side would start at Arjun Amala plus. And since the Tigers would be giving up one of the top 2 pitchers in the game, I would imagine it would go to probably the Jays' top 2 pitching prospects too. Like you're not trading a really good pitcher here. You'd be trading one of the top 2 in the game. So it would be massive, and I have to imagine it would be prospect centered. So you're looking at probably at least 3 top prospects, and then probably some major league ready talent after that. Is my read on it. And I think they would try to. I think they would try to do it. They're clearly in a win now window. The Blue Jays are clearly one of the big spenders. They have a $300 million payroll, and they're under 500 right now, so that's not good enough for what they're investing. But they're also not out of it. There's still an avenue there, and you're talking about how you, as an opposition, would want to get through the rotation first, get through the starter first, very quickly. And yeah, you're right about that. But you put Skubal on top of that, and it covers up a liability and makes that rotation extremely strong, and gives you a chance to capitalize on this winning this window you're in right now. So I think they would do it, and maybe a little bit of foreshadowing to something else we're getting to later. But there might not be a season next year, or there might not be
No, I don't think you're being
full,
hyperbolic there. I don't think you're being hyperbolic there with that tease.
so yeah, I mean the uncertainty of next year does it heighten teams' aggressiveness to win this year? I think it might. So yeah, it would be an enormous package they would have to give up, but I think they might do it.
Yeah, I totally can see why you would. I don't. There's nothing in there in that sentence that I disagree with. I think that you have to, and I mean, the Yankees are going to be in that conversation. The Dodgers are going to be in that conversation. The Padres are going to be in that conversation. Uh, and I think, I think it's fascinating. Kind of unfortunate for Detroit though too that he they are in the position that they're in. But um I think this is it's that'll be interesting. I think we're getting to the point now where of course he does have he's having elbow surgery. So that's the question. The other question about this is when is he back? But yeah,
Well, if they like what they hear on that front, the Jays, there's evidence that the Jays are not they're not scared of bringing in a pitcher with health problems, with health uncertainty,
yeah.
who has the chance to help them, because they did it last year with Shane Bieber.
Yeah.
So they will do that.
Yeah. Last year, Tarek Skubal in the playoffs against the Cleveland Guardians struck out 14, and then in the game 5 in Seattle, he struck out 13 batters, including 7 consecutive. He was rolling. So it's completely understandable why everybody is going to want Tarek Skubal. Yeah, not not surprising that conversation is going to happen. And we're getting to that point where people, yeah.
And from a Tigers perspective, they have to do it. They're 21-34. They're clearly not going to do anything this year. You have an asset that would bring you back an incredible return. I wish I could remember which one it was, but there was an insider I heard on a show this week that described it as malpractice if the Tigers don't trade Skubal, and I agree with that.
The problem is the American League is still in a flux here. It's not. Is Cleveland out of reach? Probably, but I look ahead of them. I'm still not sure that the White Sox are there. Minnesota, I'm not sure about. It's so. What else we got? We got Kansas City. Kansas City is an interesting team. Two. I see where you're coming from, but didn't Detroit come back from a big deficit against Cleveland last year?
They did. Yeah, that's a good point. I can't remember how big of the hole was last year, but yeah, they did.
So I don't know. I don't think they need to make the trade today. But I think once they get to the All-Star, I guess once they get mid-June to the All-Star break, I think you have to start looking at it and seeing where you're at. So, yeah. In terms of the Canadian content, this is, of course, we also talk Canadian. So most of the Canadian content, Jonathan, is actually with this series with the Marlins, isn't it?
Yeah. Just one thing on Canadian baseball this week, and it happened at the Rogers Centre in Toronto. The Marlins have three prominent Canadians in their lineup this year, and they, of course, were in Toronto to face the Blue Jays this week. Liam Hicks, the catcher, Otto Lopez, the shortstop, and Owen Casey, an outfielder. Hicks and Lopez typically bat 2-3 in the Marlins lineup. Hicks is third in baseball with 44 RBIs. Was originally a ninth-round pick of Texas. He's from Toronto, grew up going to the Sky Dome to watch the Jays. His mom was on the Jays pregame show on Wednesday. He played for, all three of them played for Canada at the WBC. Lopez, he leads baseball with a 342 average. He's from the Dominican but was raised in Montreal. And I said before, he plays for Canada at the WBC. Actually started his big league career with the Blue Jays, but was DFA'd. They didn't have room for him at the time. Went to the Giants, didn't stick there, and found a home with the Marlins. And finally, Owen Casey, a former Padres second rounder. He's had an interesting path. Traded from the Padres to the Cubs in the Yu Darvish trade, and then traded this offseason to the Marlins in the Edward Cabrera trade. So he's had an interesting path. Casey from Ontario as well. So Hicks, when he was growing up, played for the Toronto Mets program, and Casey played for the Fieldhouse Pirates program in Ontario. So two things. A really cool week to have a major league lineup with three prominent Canadians. But more specifically, Hicks third in baseball in RBIs, and Lopez leading baseball with a 342 average. Could we see two Canadian National League All-Stars this year? I think so.
It's possible, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was great to see.
That's great to see. Anything else on the Blue Jays / Canada?
No, I think that was about it. Yeah, I think we're good on Jays and Canada stuff.
All right. Well, let's get to the Mariners. And the big story this week is Piggyback. There are Piggyback problems in Seattle, Jonathan. This is the Piggyback situation is between Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo. So last week, Bryce Miller started, Luis Castillo relieved, and they lost that game to the Chicago White Sox. This week, it was Luis Castillo that started, and Bryce Miller came in, and neither were happy. Castillo went 4 innings, 2 hits, struck out 6, didn't allow a run, and was pulled after 4 innings. So Bryce Miller comes in and does the rest. They won the game, by the way, 9-2, but both guys are just not happy. Castillo was very visibly upset in the dugout, and Bryce Miller basically, essentially, in the interview after the game, spoke about his frustration. So this is a situation that is unfortunately not going to go away. So now they're going to go through this again. This is not something that is going to end. There are 2 options at this point, and neither of them are great. You could do the piggyback, which they're doing now, or you do a 6-man rotation, but that hurts your bullpen. So until they decide one way or the other here on what they're going to do, we are dealing with this situation with 2 unhappy guys. And of course, on Mariners Talk, some are like, hey, yeah, well, you got to suck it up. You're making millions of dollars. And others are like, I really hate the situation. It is not an easy solution. And I think at this point, until there's an injury to somebody, which is entirely possible, this is what it's going to be. And there's going to be, unless there's a trade, which look, you talk about Tarek Skubal. If someone doesn't get Tarek Skubal, I'm going to be assuming that someone might give a call to Luis Castillo, although his 5.90 ERA is not necessarily appealing right now. But he had a really good outing in Sacramento. So that's kind of the big problem that the Mariners are dealing with right now. But in the midst of this, they had a really good week in Sacramento where they swept the A's and are now in first place. So the Mariners are currently, as we look at the stand here, they are currently, it's not, hey, first place is first place, Jonathan, but 28 and 29 is what the record is. They are under 500. Not great, but they're a half a game against over the Athletics and 2 over Texas and 3 over Houston. Offense is starting to pick it up. Really, Dan Wilson said it started at the end of the Kansas City series at the bottom of the ninth, where it went from 8-0 to 8-1 to 8-4 was the final score on that one. They started to get some actually, let me make sure I get that right there. But they had a really good bottom of the ninth against the Kansas City Royals, and Dan Wilson said that that's where the kind of this offense started. And they 2 games against an Oakland. I keep calling them Oakland. They're in Sacramento. They're the Athletics. But they hit, especially Colt Emerson. He got his first major league triple of the year of his career. And the bottom of the lineup even today, Cole Young, Colt Emerson just were rolling right along. Julio Rodriguez gets a homer as well. Rob Refsnyder, who's had a really tough year, finally got a home run as well. They hit against left-handed pitching. 2 left-handed starters against the Athletics, and they won both games and got 9 runs. So I think a really good sign in terms of the offensive side of the baseball for the Mariners, pardon me, and hitting up and down that lineup. And Victor Robles even had a good game as well. So back to Sunday, it was 8-6 was the final score. Turned out to be, but they came into that final top of the ninth down 8-3, and it turned out to be 8-6. So again, offense starting to go really well on the road too. So that is really a great sign for the Mariners as they go into a series against the Arizona Diamondbacks and the New York Mets. Still no Kyle Raleigh. He is expected to do some. He's expected to do some catcher work, but he's still not quite ready to come back yet. So this is also a good sign that their offense is moving without Cal Raleigh. And still no Brendan Donovan. He's still on the IL as well. So still some injuries. There's a mass unit in Seattle as well. But they got some really good outing from Victor Robles, who had a really great game today, Wednesday against the Athletics. Made a great catch, highlight reel catch as well. So a pretty simple week overall for the Mariners, other than this piggyback position here. That I think that's the big controversy right now in Seattle. But sitting in, holding on to first place, even if they're not in first place, they're in a wild card spot. So they are kind of sitting in a playoff spot as we hit the end of May. They were kind of in this position last year. They got off to a slow start and kind of rolled. And I think my other takeaway is they are slowly growing this team together. It is slowly starting to come. The machine is starting to work a little bit here. So there's still some flaws, no question about it. And they got a very tough weekend series against a very good team in the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then they have the Mets, which is not that good of a team, but they're a fun team that everybody wants to watch. So coming home in first place, in a playoff spot, won 3 in a row, had a good road trip. That's it.
A couple things with Luis Castillo. He's been a really high-end starter in earlier parts of his career, and I think you can correct me, but even earlier in his tenure with the Mariners was really good.
Yep.
So with his displeasure, how much of that do you think is he's honestly upset at the way they're being managed? And how much of that do you think might be coming out of a place of frustration or fear of, I'm not who I used to be? Do you think he can be that guy again that he used to be?
I think it's probably a combination of both. He's been a starter his entire career. If you're putting someone from a starter to a bullpen at this point, and he's in his early 30s, it is a sign that his stuff is taking a step back. And I do think there's some validity to the question of there's a step back in his quality. But again, I think the problem also is Castillo doesn't really, well, he doesn't want to go to the bullpen, probably for the reasons that you're mentioning. But I think that the other problem is his style is more starter style than bullpen style. And like this is a fascinating competition, because on the other side you got Bryce Miller, who firmly and confidently believes he is a starter in Major League Baseball and should not be treated like this.
And you talked about the standings there, and when you bring up the first place in the AL West is under 500, that frustrates a Blue Jays fan to no end, because they're in a very similar. They have a very similar record to the Mariners, but they're 9 back. And you mentioned the Mariners look like they're slowly putting it together. Do you still see the Mariners being able to win a lot of games? Do you think they could? Do you see them having the ability to run away with the West at the end of the day, or is there a second team there you think could put it together? How do you see
I
that
think
division playing out?
ultimately, sorry to interrupt there. I think ultimately it's going to come down to the Mariners and the Rangers. To me, the Astros are too hurt. The Angels are just not a good baseball team, and the Athletics, they don't have the pitching to. They have offense, but if they don't have the pitching to get this done, unfortunately. The Rangers have really good pitching. It's going to come down to. I believe it is going to come down to the Mariners and the Rangers. I think they're the two best teams in the West. I don't think that they're going to run away with it, but I do believe that the Mariners will find a place in the playoff position. And yes, I get that you're upset. I get the Blue Jays part of being upset because you got two teams with over 600 records, Tampa Bay, but who have lost 4 in a row as of this recording, and the Yankees, who have won 4 in a row as of this recording. But yeah, I kind of understand that. Unfortunately, the two of the better teams in the American League are kind of sitting in your division, but you got to play the players in front of you and the schedule in front of you. So, I just think a lot of it with the American League overall, other than Tampa Bay and the Yankees and Cleveland, who's been rolling, is I think most of the teams are trying to figure everything out, right? And it's just taking a little bit longer than usual. But I see the Mariners as a playoff team.
I remember, was it the 2006 St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series with a regular season record of like 86 and 76, something like that?
Well, didn't the Rangers won it with a very similar record a couple of years ago?
That's right, yeah.
So, like, I don't I understand people's kind of upset with the records in the American League, especially when you look at the National League, but it is what it is. I guess I don't want to make this too simplistic. I mean, there's not really I think there's one very, very, very bad team in the American League, and that's the Los Angeles Angels. I think everyone else is kind of bad. I think Houston is kind of bad. I think Kansas City is kind of bad. I think Detroit is fading that way as well. The Athletics are fading down. The White Sox got off to a good start. Boston's is kind of bad. Baltimore, not sure that they're that good of a team. Like I just think that there's a lot of teams that are kind of bad, but not really bad. In the National League, you got the Colorado Rockies, who are very bad. The San Francisco Giants have turned very bad, and the New York Mets are a bad team. You got three really bad teams in the National League that I think is part of that too. But yeah.
Yeah, interesting for sure. Will be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah. All right, that is the Mariners. Let's do a couple of some quick hitters here in terms of some major league stories. Shohei Ohtani got hit by a pitch on Tuesday. He left the game. He's fine. He hit a home run and had 6 hitless innings for the Dodgers on Wednesday. So he's fine. He's the best player in baseball. Everything is okay. And can you imagine if they get Skubal, by the way?
Oh,
yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah. The Rangers. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. This one I saw just before we recorded on a Wednesday night. On Wednesday afternoon, the Rangers DFA'd Andrew McCutchen, and that's quite newsworthy with the career of Andrew McCutchen, former National League MVP with the Pirates, Pittsburgh Pirates franchise icon. 2,299 career games, so they DFA him 1 game short of a round number. 333 home runs, career 271 hitter, 220 stolen bases. Just an incredible player. Andrew McCutchen's been for a long time, broke in 2009. So it hadn't gone great with Texas this year for McCutchen, hitting 192 in 37 games. So yet to be seen if that's the end of the road for McCutchen, but worth bringing him up because he has turned in an incredible career.
You know who's going to pick him up, right?
Who's that?
It's the Dodgers.
Oh yeah, the Dodgers get everyone.
Yeah, and he'll turn it around. He'll have some magic elixir in that Dodger Stadium.
They picked up Eric Lauer, and he went 6 innings, 1 run.
Yeah, I know. I know. That Dodgers. They do it all the time. Christopher Sanchez had a really good week as well. He went 44 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings. Sanchez, one of the better pitchers in baseball. And the Phillies are starting to get it together. I would just watch out for the Phillies in the National League.
Yeah, I would add to the Sanchez note. Bob Nightingale tweeted the all-time record for a scoreless streak is 59 innings, set by Oral Hershiser. And Christopher Sanchez now at 44 2/3. And just let me take a peek here and make sure that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5 consecutive, 6 consecutive scoreless starts for Christopher Sanchez. So yeah, creeping up on historic stuff for him.
Mm-hmm. I should also mention there was a no-hitter this week. The Houston Astros, Tatsui Ima, Stephen Okert, and Alamber Santa had combined for a no-hitter. this week against the Texas Rangers. And then the Rangers responded with a drubbing of them the next day. By the way, do you know the last time there was a complete game no-hitter in Major League Baseball?
I don't remember.
It was Blake Snell in 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
Funny that it's Blake Snell with the last one, because he's infamous for one that he didn't get to finish.
Yeah. For sure. Yes. We've talked about this. That's one on the podcast as well. That one is one of the that was a tough one. And the Milwaukee Brewers pitcher had quite a night on Tuesday night, and it was a reliever by the name of, let's make sure I got his first name right here. Abner Ruby did the DX crop chop after striking out a St. Louis Cardinal. This right to the Cardinal bench, who, by the way, they did nothing about that, except they challenged the call, and it turned out that strikeout turned out to be a ball, which was quite funny. But he did have to apologize. Brewers manager Pat Murphy was not impressed, and the Brewers are, as an organization, don't take kindly to that kind of thing. So I suspect that there's going to be some punishment for him, but not the greatest gesture. Not, I don't think that that's a very good move to do. Not a fan of it, and it makes the Brewers look bad, and it made him look bad as well. So that was the other kind of news for the week. In terms of kind of the quick hits. The big news came on Wednesday night. Jeff Passan tweeted about this. Bob Nightingale tweeted about it. But the first proposal, and we kind of talked about this earlier when we talked about the Blue Jays, if there's going to, and Jonathan teased, if there's going to be a regular season next year, that very much is on the table. But because we know that the MLB and the MLBPA are about to go into some very intense negotiations. And the MLBPA made its first proposal in this. They want a competitive integrity tax. So this is for any team that does not spend $150 million. And they want an increase to minimum salary from $780,000 to $1.5 million. Increase in base CBT threshold from $244 million to $300 million as well. So that was some of the, some of the things that they're looking at. I think we are in for a very long battle here. You know that the owners are going to come back with the word salary cap. You know that the players do not want it. But this is the first salvo in a long negotiation.
Yeah, it's looking at some of the points in the first proposal. It's stuff that obviously players are going to like. It's stuff that I think fans would like, with essentially a salary floor. It's stuff that would be good for the game. An interesting little part in there was proposing that 30-year-old players, I believe, I don't have the wording on me right now, but it was for players who debut much later, it would only take them 5 years to get to free agency instead of 6. And I've for some players in the past who've been journeymen and taken until they were 30 to break in, and that there'd be a lot of players that would benefit from that. But yeah, a lot of stuff in that first proposal that obviously players and fans would like. But I don't see the owners liking much of it. So this is, I don't think it's going to be received well from the owners.
In my experience, though, it's when everybody feels like they've had to give up something is when you get to an agreement, and they have time. So, by the way,
Yeah.
CBT, competitive balance tax. Just want to make sure for those who don't know what CBT is, competitive balance tax is what they're looking at there. So, that will be a longer conversation that we'll have as we continue on. Um, the one thing I will say from the player's perspective, I think that this threshold of spending is a very legitimate argument for them because there's teams that will, like the Pittsburgh Pirates, don't spend money. Um, there's other teams like that as well. There's teams that overspend, but there's teams that are underspending, and like the Colorado Rockies have long not spent, and it's just so many teams that are just don't feel that they're ever going to make the playoffs. And I think from a player's perspective, I do see where they're coming from in terms of the spending threshold. I think that that's something that does have to be addressed. Do we need a salary cap as well? Probably. We probably need a combination of something to both. But yeah, I think that from the player's perspective, and we'll have a longer conversation about this in a future podcast. There was a lot of argument about Kyle Tucker and the Dodgers in the offseason and how the Dodgers are ruining baseball, even though your Blue Jays went after Kyle Tucker as well and apparently not ruining baseball, but the Dodgers are. I find that conversation fascinating in and of itself. But I would argue if you're going to make the argument that Kyle Tucker and the Dodgers are ruining baseball because they're spending too much money, I would argue that these teams that are not spending money are also ruining baseball. And I think that they need to take a little bit more responsibility for that.
I
And
don't
in
know.
some ways,
I completely agree with you on that. It's the owners who refuse to invest on the field that are bad for the game. The Dodgers are just trying harder than anybody else. So I never had a big problem with the Dodgers, and now that the Blue Jays have jumped into the big boy pool as well, you won't hear a bad word from me about the Dodgers spending. They just do it best. With the proposed competitive integrity tax for any team that doesn't spend $150 million, part of their proposal that from the owner's perspective that would contribute to getting teams to that floor, the players have proposed a pretty big raise in minimum salary from $780,000 to $1.5 million. So good for the rank and file players, and maybe also good for the owners to get them closer to that floor on minimum players.
yeah. Yep. Well, you know what? That's a good threshold to our final story here. And it involves Fernando Tatis, and it involves, although certainly a player that is making a lot of money in Major League Baseball. This is a story that probably in a lot of ways is a lesson for those that are coming up in baseball that need to be aware of some things in terms of pursuing their dream. I'm going to let you take this story, Jonathan, and you talk about this.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep and layered one. And yeah, I would agree with you that it's something that players coming up should pay attention to, and in just being mindful with any contract you sign and anybody you partner with now and how it might affect you later. So what Fernando Tatis Jr. did was when he was 18 years old, had not yet reached the majors yet. He partnered with a group called Big League Advantage, and what they do essentially is they are investors who give lump sum payments to minor league players, minor league athletes on the spot with the intention of helping with the intention of that money going towards helping the player with living arrangements, training ability, eating right, any kind of lifestyle or professional expenses when it comes to getting through minor league life, because minor league conditions and resources in the minors are very challenging and very tight. So it helps players when they're in the minors, but there's a flip side. So what Tatis did when he was 18 is he signed a deal with Big League Advantage that gave him $2 million while he was in the minor leagues. And the flip side of that is when you sign a contract with BLA, according to their website, the player can choose a sliding scale of if the player reaches the major leagues, they can choose on a sliding scale between 1 and 15% of their major league earnings would then have to be paid back to BLA. If the player does not ever reach the majors, they never have to repay anything. So that's the contract that Tatis signed said that if he made the majors, he would pay BLA 10% of his career earnings. He made the majors, and he signed a 14-year, $340 million deal. So, per the terms of his BLA contract, he owes them $34 million. Tatis sued BLA, alleging that BLA used predatory tactics to lure him. This went in front of a judge, and the judge disagreed, saying that it was a legal contract. And so now he owes BLA the $34 million as per the terms of the contract, and he owes BLA's legal fees for the court case. BLA's website says that they have helped over 700 athletes. And so, I mean, I can totally see it, and you can jump in wherever you want here. But yeah, minor league life, it is really tight, really hard. And it's been minor league conditions in baseball have improved since COVID. They downsized, they got rid of 42 minor league teams, and conditions got better in terms of player resources and salaries, but it's still not easy. And forever in the old days, there was a huge percentage of minor league players, who didn't make it simply because they couldn't survive the minor leagues. And it's even more relevant for players coming over from Latin countries, that not only are they in need of money now, their families are probably relying on them to make it big. So I can totally understand the place for this to help players survive that time and hopefully get there. But the flip side is that the player has to totally understand the other side of this contract. And Tatis Jr. obviously wasn't, I'm going to be careful how I word it.
This is where I'll jump in, I guess, here. Yep. There's two angles on this that I think are very important, and I think this is a longer podcast topic and a future interview for sure. There's the outside of North America or outside Canada and US conversation about this, where players that are coming from countries like the Dominican Republic or other places that are coming into North America, not aware of North American culture, can be taken advantage of in situations, and not with English not being their first language. And it's not only in baseball, it can happen in other things as well. They can be taken advantage of because they're excited about the opportunity that is presented in front of them. On a side note, as a person that formerly worked in a polytechnic, I will tell you that international students were charged ridiculously enormous fees for coming into Canada and the States to study. Like, it's ridiculous how much that they have had to pay. On the other side of this, from the Canadian, even from players that you are dealing with and play-by-play with, that you do play-by-play with, Jonathan, this is a lesson in your dream in pursuing an MLB career and realizing that, yes, there's a contract, and needing to be aware of the things that you have to be aware of here. The chances that someone is going to turn into a Fernando Tatis is very small, that you're going to get as much as Fernando Tatis has gotten in his career. The chances are very low. But could be a chance that you could get into the major leagues, and you could be dealing with a salary of either $780,000 or $1.5 million. And you may not be aware that some of this stuff that you're going to have to pay everybody else. So it is about the fine print. And I think there's some very important conversations that can come out of this here that we certainly don't have time on this podcast or the expertise, quite frankly, to delve into. But those are the two areas that I think are the impact from this. And I think this is why we wanted to talk about this story and bring this to attention, especially if our focus is around Canadian baseball. I could see players especially in your leagues being impacted by something like this.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a higher end prospect.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, the takeaway, a major takeaway is that, us regular folks look at the dollar figures that major leaguers are making, and even the ones that are making those huge salaries, it's a complicated world out there. It's complicated getting there, and once you're there, it's not easy to manage the business side of their careers, and this is just one way. And it's being mindful and understanding the business side. And I mean, athletes, they're athletes. They play a sport. They got in. I'm willing to say most athletes get into start pursuing a sport because they love playing it. It doesn't mean that everybody is savvy on the business side, and that's not a judgment. So it's, understand off-field stuff for yourself, and if you don't, get people around you who can understand it for you. And yeah, the one thing on the Tatis case that's just interesting, and it's not a judgment one way or the other, just an interesting part of it is that he's not the first person in his family to play in the major leagues. His dad, Fernando Tatis, had a fairly long major league career, so he's been through the process, and he's made it in a different era. But he's been a big leaguer, so it's surprising for a couple of reasons that Junior would run into this. But yeah, yeah, pretty interesting case. A lot of layers to it, and I think one that has some value. Has some value for aspiring players to pay attention to, just to be mindful and do what you can to understand what you're doing off the field.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else we need to get into?
Um,
That you're keeping an eye on?
For me, this week is. Oh yeah, I actually did want to give a plug, not a plug, but just acknowledge. I talked last week about the Canadian College Baseball Conference World Series. It was won by the Prairie Baseball Academy out of Lethbridge, so congrats to them. And the college world, immediately when the college spring season ends, which in the US and most levels it's still going on for a little bit yet. But this coming week, the college summer leagues in Canada start up. So the Western Canadian League, I believe, is starting up. This will go up on Thursday, so it's starting the day we post this. That's the college summer league in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And within the next week or so, the West Coast League Summer League is starting up, and they have teams, 4 teams in BC, and they have a team in Edmonton as well. So, yeah, that's exciting. A lot of prospects come through those summer leagues. A lot of really good fan experiences in those ballparks. And yeah, this is an exciting moment for Canadian baseball. We talked about the Marlins people. The Blue Jays had their biggest crowd of the season on a Monday night in May while under 500 against the Marlins. And then the next next day on a getaway 1:00 game on a Wednesday, they had 500 less than the day before. So the Blue Jays are packing it every night. Minor baseball registration across the country is off the charts, and I think we're going to see that spill into the summer league parks. So yeah, if you have the ability to get out to your local park, I would encourage you to do it, because this is it's a cool moment for Canadian baseball.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Exciting times for baseball. We're happy to be talking about it. And so we'll leave it here for now. You can follow Jonathan at Hodgie Speaks on the social media. You can follow me at KEVOLE. And then you can follow us on social media as well. How do you follow us?
We're on X and Instagram, out at LF Pod. We're on Facebook, out of Left Field. The video episodes live on YouTube. The audio episodes live on Spreaker. We're on Substack, and we have other things in the works as time goes on.
Yes. That's it. Well, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. And see.